Stand for the pledge, allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to our April 3rd meeting. If anyone has any questions or comments, please come to the microphone. Identify yourself, state your business. With that, if we could have the roll.
Ellery.
Here.
Kingsvater.
Here.
Kleeman.
Here.
Kufa.
Here.
Laporte.
Here.
McCartney.
Here.
Do I hear a motion to excuse the mayor?
I'd make the motion.
I'll support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the consent agenda. Council minutes meetings of February 20th. Recommendation to was approved.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Presentations. We have our 2015-16 annual audit. I believe we have Mr. Bill Tucker here. You're going to take that for us?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Bill Tucker from Abraham & Gaffney. I'm here to present to you tonight the audited financial statements for September 30th, 2016. A couple of different items that I handed out to you tonight. Just wanted to kind of walk through each one of those documents for you so you're familiar with them as I went through my presentation. The first one, just is the largest of the bound documents for you. This is the financial statement audit report for September 30th, 2016. Within this report, you will find all the necessary financial statements, note disclosures, and our opinion on those financial statements to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, all located within this bound document. So that is the 2016 financial statements. There's a smaller document as well that was included with your packet tonight. This was also bound on, it has Abraham Gaffney there on the front for you. This is what we consider to be our performance audit. So Michigan Department of Transportation has required a special performance audit for all cities, villages, and road commissions starting in 2016. So these were some additional procedures that we went through and did for the city in the current year. This is the report on those procedures. The last document was just a loose letter for you. This is the board communication letter. A majority of this letter is boilerplate language. It does go through and address some of the more significant estimates within the financial statements for such things as useful life of capital assets would be one of the more significant estimates. So it does go through and describe that for you as the board communication letter. The last document, which I believe is in your packets, is the audit presentation outline. So hopefully, so what I've done for you in the audit presentation outline is I pulled together pages out of the financial statements that I wanted to go over with you in the presentation tonight. Also put together some graphs and charts for you as well. So really, majority of my presentation is going to be focused on this one document. Like I said, the pages I pulled out of the financial statements for you. If there's any questions, anything else you saw within the financial statements, please let me know. I can answer those at any time. Just wanted to make sure you knew I was going through that audit presentation outline. Before I did get started as well, I wanted to take a second and thank Mike, Russ, Janice, and the rest of the staff for their courtesy and cooperation throughout the audit process. Obviously, everybody works really hard through the whole process, so we do appreciate everybody's hard work. Thank you very much. All right, the first page that I'm going to turn to in the audit presentation outline is page Roman numeral number 1, which is the independent auditor's report. The purpose of an audit is to provide an opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's not to detect fraud, and it's not to give you an opinion on your internal controls. Within the independent auditor's report, we're providing our opinion on your financial statements. We're actually giving our opinion on the 9 opinion units of the city. Those 9 opinion units are described in the first paragraph, and I've highlighted that section there for you. Those opinion units are the governmental activities, the business type activities, the aggregate discretely presented component units, each major fund, in which there was 5 major funds in the current year, the general fund, the major street fund, the sewer fund, the water fund, and the harbor fund. And then the last opinion unit is the aggregate remaining fund information. Our opinion on each of those 9 opinion units is described at the top of the second page in the paragraph that's labeled opinions, in which it states, in our opinion, based on our audit and the report of other auditors, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. That's what we consider to be an unmodified or clean opinion, and the best opinion you can receive on your financial statements. From there, I'll turn to page number 1 of the financial statements, the statement of net position, or the next page in your presentation outline. The statement of net position is a snapshot of your assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and net position at September 30th, 2016. The statement of net position is presented on the full accrual basis of accounting, and it includes your capital assets, your long-term debt, and your net pension liability of the city. I've highlighted the net pension liability number on this page for you again this year in 2016, just because it is something new, so I wanted to kind of go over that with the City Council again this year. That was new in 2016, where we started reporting that liability on the face of the financial statements. Before, that liability was always within the note disclosures to the financial statements. So in 2016, there was a GASB statement that told us to start reporting that liability on the face of the financial statements. As you can see from those numbers, a total liability, net pension liability of just over $10 million at September 30th, 2016. Now, I did pull in an additional page. As you turn the page to page, this is actually page 45 of the financial statements. I pulled together a net pension liability page out of the notes, just to give you a little bit more information about that net pension liability. So we're looking at the 2015 column. You have total pension liability of $21,510,000. So that's the overall amount of liability that's out there. You do have the very next number down that's highlighted, $11 million that is with MERS, which is your fiduciary net position or your investments that are sitting with MERS to give you that net pension liability. So you take that 21 minus the $11 that you have in investments to come to that $10,039,941 of net pension liability at September 30th. As a percentage, you're about 53% funded in the most recent actuarial report.
Isn't it 85% is what they're supposed to be?
So on average, what we're seeing across the state is we're seeing about 65 to 70% is the average across the state. Obviously, the higher the better. Yeah, so what it's supposed to be, if it was 85, yeah, definitely that'd be great. But yeah, on average, we're seeing anywhere between 65 and 70 be the average. Obviously, that percentage did go down in 2015, and that percentage or the average went down across the state for everybody as well. So as you look at that number, it went from 62% to 53% funded in 1 year. And the reasons for that is that net pension, that total pension liability number went up. So it went from 19 million to 21 million. Several different factors from MERS for that reason for it going up. They made a change in their mortality tables. So they were using mortality tables from 1994, and they updated those to 2014 mortality tables. What happened during that period of time is that people are living about 10 years longer. So significant effect there. Also, they changed their rate of return on their investments. So they went from what they were always at 8% rate of return on their investments. They went down to 7.75%. Again, another significant impact on the dollar amounts there. So those couple factors alone caused that decrease overall in your percentage funded in 2015, 2016. All right. Any questions on that pension information before I move forward? Okay. The next page I have for you in this report, this is kind of the income statement or the revenues and expenses on that full accrual basis of accounting. This is page number 2 from the financial statements, the statement of activities. As I mentioned, this is the other full accrual statement. It includes your depreciation expense of capital assets. It excludes the purchases of capital assets and principal payments of long-term debt, like you normally would see on your fund level financial statements, or in your general fund, you would see the capital outlay and the principal payments of debt being shown within those fund level financial statements. This statement's a little bit different. It starts off with your expenses. So it starts off with your expenses, goes into your program revenues there at the top of the page. Looks at each function or program kind of separately. So you do see those negative numbers there that I've highlighted for you on that page. For instance, public safety at negative $1.6 million. That's not unusual to see negative numbers there. What you're showing there is that reliance that those general government programs have on general revenues, or property taxes, state revenue sharing, that reliance that they have on those additional general revenues, which are at the bottom of the page there. Your general revenues, property taxes, personal property tax reimbursement, state revenue sharing, interest, that type of stuff. Results for the year on that page, third number up from the bottom, within your government activities, an increase of $666,785. From there, I'll turn to the next page. This gets into kind of the more normal, presentation, or the way that you're used to seeing the financial statements with your general fund, your major street funds, that type of presentation. So page number 3 is your governmental funds balance sheet. This is a snapshot of your assets, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and fund balance at September 30th, 2016. On this page, we focus on the general fund, as it is the main operating fund of the city. In particular, we look at the fund balance and the components of assigned and unassigned fund balance there at the bottom of the page. You had total general fund balance of $3,898,379, with portions that are considered to be non-spendable for such things as prepaids. You've already expended that money out, so that's kind of subtracted off, leaving you with a assigned and unassigned fund balance of $3,869,853 that is available for expenditures in future periods. That dollar amount represents approximately 109% of your annual operating expenditures. And that is up a little bit from previous year. So last year is about 86% of your annual operating expenses. So a good increase there in your overall percentage of fund balance. From there, we'll get into some of the details on page number 5, or the very next page. Some of the details of the activity within the year and what happened throughout the year. So page number 5 is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the year ended September 30th, 2016. Again, focusing on your general fund, and starting off the top of the page with your total revenues. You had total revenues of $4,057,794. That was an increase of approximately $367,000, or 10%, compared to 2015. The main area that we saw fluctuation within your revenues was within your tax revenues. So your tax revenues overall were up $373,000. The main component of that increase, of that $373,000, was $316,000 you received from the local community stabilization authority. Sorry, local community stabilization authority. So the local community stabilization authority is in charge of collecting the personal property taxes. So as those have come off over the last couple of years, that has moved to being collected by the state of Michigan, and then they kind of turn around and pay it back to the local communities. What they saw this year is a significant increase in what they thought they were going to be handing out to local communities in tax revenue or personal tax revenue that they received. So it was about 275% of what they expected. They actually were able to turn around and provide to local communities. So that was a big increase, something that you did not receive in 2015. So that is a big check that came in for all local communities in 2016. Moving down the page to your expenditures, you had total expenditures of $2,906,223. That is down approximately $4,700 or 0.2% compared to 2015. We did see a couple minor fluctuations within your expenditures. The first area was within general government. We saw general government expenditures were down about $24,000. A majority of that decrease was related to a memorial statue that was constructed in 2015. That was kind of the most significant fluctuation there. The other area that we saw fluctuation was within your public improvement expenditures. Those were up in the current year for capital outlay, installation of new sewer, and also some BSNA software as well. So a couple of different fluctuations within those expenditures. Results for the year, third number up from the bottom, in addition to your overall general fund balance in the dollar amount of $550,657. From there, I do have a couple graphs and charts for you. The first one is a bar chart. This is a 5-year analysis of your general fund revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. The blue is your revenues, red is your expenditures, and the green there is your fund balance. As you can see, that good positive trend in your fund balance there, and your revenues have exceeded your expenditures for each of the last 5 years. So good positive trend there in your fund balance.
So because we're not looking at a color chart, the third bar from the left would be the expenditures. If I was starting in 2012, so you have the 3 bars, the third one would be the expenditures?
So the blue?
I don't know, I'm looking at a black and white.
Third one's fun.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the one on the very far left of each one of the years would be revenues.
Revenue.
Yep, sorry.
And the third bar is expenses.
The third bar is fund balance.
Fund balance, okay.
Yep, so the middle one is expenditures. The middle one is expenditures.
All right,
Therefore.
thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, the next charts I have for you, this is the composition of your general fund revenues and expenditures. Again, without the color chart, you guys are going to have a little bit of difficulty seeing this. The largest component of your general fund revenues, obviously, is your property tax revenues. That's at 70% of your overall revenues and other financing sources. That is up a little bit from last year. Last year's 68% of your total revenues. Again, that local community stabilization money coming into that made that impact there, moving the percentage up a little bit. The bottom chart is your composition of your general fund expenditures. Making up the largest piece of the pie there, 30% is your public safety expenditures. Very consistent with last year. Last year was also 30%. The next 2 largest pieces there at 18% each is your general government expenditures and your other financing uses expenditures in 2016. All right, and that is all I had for you tonight. Very clean report. We didn't have any suggestions related to internal control, any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we identified. So a very good, clean report for you in 2016.
Good for another year.
Good for another year.
Any other questions for him? No? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bill, I have one. Have you ever heard anything from the state on the next round of payments from them for the community stabilization, or?
Yeah, I was just at a conference on Friday, and Howard Heineman from the Department of Treasury was there, presenting and talking about, what, I guess if you're looking at kind of budgeting for what type of revenue you're going to be seeing in the next round. They did think that it was going to be coming in higher than expected again, so the budget was going to be a little bit higher. So it might not be the 275% that you received additional this year, but it was going to be higher than the 100% is what they were expecting. So it sounded like a good trend there. Hopefully for the next couple of years, as you get it, get that money from the LCSA.
And then eventually it's phased out.
Yeah, I think, eventually, I'm not sure what year that, how far that goes out for. I know in 2019, they kind of changed the formula that they're going to be going through to make that determination of how much you will be receiving. So, you instead of doing that couple-year look-back, 3-year look-back of your personal property that you should have received, it'll be a 5% compared, based on the new personal property that you should be getting. And then kind of building up from there. So not sure how far out that will really go.
Thanks. Didn't want to put you on the spot. But
Thankfully, I just was at a presentation on it in front of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, we have a proclamation for Arbor Day. I'll read it to you. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture a special day set aside for planting trees. Whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was the first, with the planting of over 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil, winds, and waters, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderate temperatures, clean the air, reduce oxygen, and provide a habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource, give us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas trees in our community has increased property values, enhance economic vitality of our business areas, and beautify our community. Trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Whereas the City of St. Clair has been recognized by Tree City USA National Arbor Day Foundation, desires continued tree planting ways. Therefore, Bill Cedar, authorized as the mayor, hereby proclaims April 28th as Arbor Day. The City of St. Clair urges all citizens to support efforts in care of trees, woodlands, and support community forestry products. We also urge all citizens to plant trees that gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of the present and future generations. Hereby sealed and signed by the mayor, April 3rd, 2017. Okay, moving on. Ordinances and resolutions. Historical District.
Your Honor, I can take that. Before City Council this evening is a proposed amendment to the Historic District Ordinance, which offers an amendment to Section 14-305, which is the section concerning the modification of historic districts. Currently, in order for a modification of an historic district to occur, there has to be a creation of the original study group, a study conducted with a report authored, a 60-day notice provided for hearing on that process, and then action taken by City Council consistent with the findings in the report. For reasons that I'll be happy to discuss here momentarily, this is being proposed as an emergency amendment to the ordinance, which will allow us to circumvent that process. The emergency adoption of the ordinance is allowable under the city charter as long as the City Council declares that an emergency as it affects life, health, property, or public peace exists. And as I've authored the proposed ordinance, we do have that declaration of emergency. Essentially, what prompts this is that in the face of this rehabilitation of the St. Clair Historic District, there's been a proposal made by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, which is very typical in these types of projects, to allow a grant to the city and also a loan to the city for the remediation of certain brownfield issues that exist on the premises. However, there's been a change in that approach from the MDEQ. And now, rather than providing the city a grant and an accompanying loan, the MDEQ is actually going to take the entire cost of that project on by itself using another source. Essentially, it's a remediation fund concerning old gas stations. Now, the only hang-up on the ability of the developer to access this fund money is the fact that the remediation has to occur on the western side of M29, where the Michigan Room exists and other structures that have been designated as a part of our St. Clair Historic District. The proposed amendment, if adopted and, introduced and adopted tonight by City Council, would become immediately effective. And what it would allow is for the Historic District Commission to hear a presentation from the developer on why these demolitions or alterations are necessary. And if they recommend following through on that, their recommendation would be brought back to City Council for approval at the regular meeting of April 17th. So, again, if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So our action tonight would be to introduce and adopt?
And adopt, and because it's adopted as an emergency motion, Mr. Laporte, there's not a publication requirement either. It'll be immediately effective.
I would make a motion to introduce and adopt the
I'll support.
proposal.
It's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote?
Sure.
Roll call vote, please.
Kufa,
Yes.
Laporte,
Yes.
McCartney,
Yes.
Ellery,
Yes.
Kingsbotter,
Yes.
Kleeman,
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, we move on to reports from administration.
Your Honor, I have 2 items this evening. First, now that the audit is done, we're moving on to start our budget cycle for the 2017-18 fiscal year. I will have the first draft to council in May, and then by the 15th of June, we need to approve the next year budget. So nothing yet, but it will be coming forward. I just wanted to let you know. Second item, April 14th, next Friday, not this Friday, City Hall will be closed. That's Good Friday. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything further?
Your Honor, I would just add one thing, and this I slipped my mind as a part of the presentation on the ordinance adoption. One of the questions that I had, and members of the council might have as well, is because this is not, this proposed project on the west side of M29 is not being done as a loan and grant as typical, what role, if any, does the city have to play? Because certainly under the loan and grant application, the city would have to sign the loan. So I spoke today with a woman by the name of Courtney Kohoff. She's a supervisor in the MDEQ redevelopment office in Lansing, and she confirmed for me that the city has no role to play in that project at all. It's being worked out between the owner of the property and her office. The only role she declared the city had to play was the adoption of the ordinance. As long as the work is permitted and they can go in and remove the tanks and do whatever demolition is necessary, then they will take care of it along with the developer, and the city does not have to sign off on anything beyond that.
So it's between the developer and...
And the MDEQ, correct.
So a question for the attorney would be, late last year or maybe mid-year, a brownfield loan and grant was approved, whereas the city would have been the
Guaranteer.
would have been the one that had borrowed the money and then loaned, and then would have had to make arrangements with Mr. Katowski for repayment. So my question would be, and I guess we should have discussed that before the motion was made, but is that now, that brownfield loan and grant, has that been nullified now?
Yes, it's being substituted by this new
Okay.
project. Now, as to the east side of M29 and the what we would call the St. Clair and proper, there may be further grant loan opportunities, or perhaps another bite at the apple with this program that the MDEQ has, but that is for, they haven't gotten that far yet. They're going to start on the west side.
Okay.
So actually, it's a win-win for us.
It is. There's no liability for the city on this, beyond taking the action that the council's taken tonight.
So we don't have to correct it, we're fine with it.
We're fine.
Okay. Moving on to departments. Any city department, council people, boards, committees, chairmen, council representatives, nothing. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, none. Claims and accounts, March 24th and March 31st, 2017.
Make a motion to approve as presented. Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Public comment. Wow. No public comment. Mayor, council members, comments. We don't have any activities coming up other than Salmon Steaks at the end of the month. We have another meeting after that. Other than that,
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
it's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for attending.